She's incredible, by the way. And I watch, too. I think she's incredible. The shot, I watched the shot go in. All that. It's like, couldn't she shoot that way in the NBA? If you want to just give her the ball. She is unbelievable.
Donald Trump has finally broken his silence on Caitlin Clark. And what he said didn't just shock WNBA fans. It left Caitlin herself stunned. This is the kind of moment that shakes the world of sports to its core. Stay tuned because you're not going to want to miss this. Caitlin Clark has scorched her name into the WNBA landscape. She is undoubtedly the league's most popular player right now. The visibility of the Women's League has forever changed upon her arrival. This shows in all of the attendance metrics of the WNBA, and it's clear in the amount of media discourse that covers her over any other player. She has the opportunity to be even bigger. She represents the league to a wider audience and drives even more people to look into the WNBA. Her popularity has come from the barriers of sports fans and has now even been able to reach the general public that was never familiar with the WNBA at all. This is a stature only reserved for the top of the top athletes. When you hear golf, you think of Tiger Woods. When you hear sprinting, you think of Usain Bolt. Even your grandma would recognize these names. In the NBA, it's Jordan and LeBron, but the WNBA has never had this name until now.
It's something that is taking place, and it's unusual. Tiger, when he first went out, remember those days when Tiger went out? He was, or just a great baseball player in the minor leagues, or a first-year football player. You see a running back who's making like minimum, and he turns out to be a superstar. You have that, and, probably there's no real weight to guard against it. It sounds unfair, but somebody agrees to a contract.
It is kind of astounding that Caitlin Clark is doing this much to grow the smaller industry of the WNBA, while the league itself isn't able to fully compensate her with what she deserves. She's earning less than what her true value is as the WNBA's #1 star. It's a unique place to be for an athlete. Not many athletes before have succeeded in this precarious role. Donald Trump recalls the likes of Tiger Woods and the general idea of young star athletes in different sports in order to compare them to what is happening with Caitlin Clark. These are players who receive a smaller amount of financial compensation for the amount of attention and stardom that they bring to the table.
I see it all the time with football and baseball and even basketball, where somebody comes in, he turns out to be 10 times better. The quarterback for San Francisco, wasn't he the last draft choice? And I watched as 2 quarterbacks got hurt for the team, and they were having a hard time anyway, but they got hurt, and he comes in as the last draft choice, and he moves the team. He moves it, and other guys that get drafted #1 don't move it at all. It's an amazing.
Caitlin Clark's popularity has exploded, even to the point where current President-elect Donald Trump has had to give his take on the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. With all of the issues that Caitlin Clark has brought to light about the economics of the WNBA, it's also fascinating to hear about what Donald Trump has to say about it. As an experienced businessman and media personality, it's amazing that Caitlin Clark has been able to generate interest and support for the WNBA from the most powerful people who even operate outside of the field of sports. Caitlin has been an advocate for the improvement of women's sports and has used her platform to address the issues of equality in it. It's a huge success for women's athletics that more of these issues are tackled on major sports platforms by important voices in politics, business, and media, such as President-elect Donald Trump. Trump appeared on the Let's Go podcast with Bill Bitch, Max Crosby, Peter King, and Jim Gray, as with everyone who has ever seen her play, gave a lot of praise for Caitlin Clark. He couldn't help but call her incredible. He called her unique impact on the game a phenomenon. The hosts of the podcast led the discussion by bringing up the pay gap between the WNBA and the NBA. They brought up some useful information to Donald Trump regarding the ratings of Caitlin Clark's games and the difference between what she earns in a year of playing basketball in comparison with what NBA superstars earn in a year, taking LeBron James and Steph Curry as examples. LeBron James and Steve Curry drive the NBA's ratings and popularity in the same way that Caitlin Clark does for the WNBA. That is why it was truly surprising when the hosts brought up the amount of their yearly earnings compared with one another as a solution to this clear disparity. Donald Trump was still stumped on what could be done about this, even with his understanding of how large institutional systems and markets work. he does express the desire to solve the issue at the very least.
Well, you'd like to do that, but it's a very complicated thing. It's a very unusual.
Trump may have given a short and overall underwhelming answer concerning the disparity of basketball league salaries, but it was only because he was so eager to talk about the greatness of Caitlin Clark as a basketball player. He says he watches Caitlin Clark's games and even made sure to give his appreciation for Caitlin Clark's unique skill set, which is shooting the lights out of the basketball. Her talent made him ponder if her skills could even transcend the double wnba and translate well to the NBA. She would get the right salary that her talent deserves if that were the case. It's hard to discuss these less than ideal player payment situations because there is always the element of agreement in each of the players' contracts with the team that pays them. Then again, there are more rules in play that are implemented across the league, such as complications with the salary cap and rookie contract considerations. That is why this conflict occurs again and again in different sports. Trump even brings up the NFL in the discussion since San Francisco drafted a star, Brock Purdy, with the final pick in the draft. Although it isn't the perfect comparison to Caitlin Clark since she was the #1 pick of her draft class, it still says something about the difficulty in correctly gauging the value of a player to your franchise. It was sudden how Brock Purdy went from only being Mr. Irrelevant to being the most important player on his team, making his early contract nowhere near representing what his actual value eventually ended up being.
I see it all the time with football and baseball and even basketball, where somebody comes in, he turns out to be 10 times better. The quarterback for San Francisco, wasn't he the last draft choice? And I watched as 2 quarterbacks got hurt for the team, and they were having a hard time anyway, but they got hurt, and he comes in as the last draft choice, and he moves the team. He moves it, and other guys that get drafted #1 don't move it at all. It's an amazing.
It might be amazing for San Francisco to land such a great talent that was previously undervalued, but the conflict still exists to the athlete's detriment, so it's still very much worth examining the situation no matter how tricky it can get. There is a pay gap between the rookies of a sports league compared to the experienced veterans, and even more so with the star players in the prime of their careers. This is understandable because those players are in different phases of their careers and typically bring another level of value to them. Typically, there is just a complication when a player on their rookie contract brings more value than any rookie in the history of their league. The highest paid player in the WNBA is Jackie Young, a star for the Las Vegas Aces. She earns an annual salary of $252,450 per year. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, a rookie for the Indiana Fever, only has a base annual salary of $765 for the 2024 season. This is a substantial pay gap between the 2 WNBA players. The irony is that Caitlin Clark is around the same level of player as Jackie Young in terms of talent already in only her rookie year, and clearly, she would have more upside as a team's asset. Their salaries do not show this accurate representation of their value as players. Clark also definitely generates more revenue for her team and the WNBA at large through attendance, attention, and sales. Her annual salary of $765 is not even that far from the minimum wage for a WNBA player, which is $70,100. But there is a much larger glaring pay gap than the one between 2 women's basketball players in the same league. Professional basketball arguably has the largest pay gap of any profession when it comes to the difference in gender. The pay gap between the WNBA and NBA is a huge chasm. This is expected by many and very easily explainable on the surface. The revenue that the NBA generates is just that much larger than the revenue that the WNBA is able to generate. The major revenue streams of both leagues are ticket sales from attendance, TV, or broadcasting right and sales of merchandise. There is then more coverage done for the NBA, greatly boosting its visibility too. The public as well NBA games and NBA players are getting much more attention on every form of media, which then exponentially boosts their earnings as well. This gap is more understandable when you think about the difference in the maturity of the leagues. The NBA has been going on for many more decades. The NBA is now in its 79th year as a basketball league. Meanwhile, the WNBA is only in its 29th year. The NBA was also merely generating low revenue when it was at this early stage as a league. That being said, the WNBA can still do more to bridge this gap, since there are many more avenues to market the league in the current day. They have increased in their TV ratings over the most recent seasons, yet the WNBA still has not reached a mass audience on TV. Despite all of its impressive growth in viewership, it still struggles to gain a strong enough television audience in comparison to other professional sports leagues. In the 2023 season, the WNBA's average regular season viewership was only 55,000. This is less than half of the NBA's average regular season viewership of 1.6 million. Such as President Donald Trump are receiving unanimous acclaim from everyone who has watched her play. The growing support has extended to an interest in how the WNBA as a whole can be improved so that it can continue to cultivate special talents like Caitlin Clark with the treatment they deserve. This growth will be a financial struggle, as the many systems in place currently work against women athletes, but there has never been as much hope as ever before. It is a telling sign that the president-elect has given his time to discuss the WNBA's issues and the greatness of Caitlin Clark. It only makes sense that more influential people will be giving their support to the young league to shape it for the better. This is an exciting moment for women's basketball, and only the early signs of what Caitlin Clark is capable of as a generational sports icon. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting updates from the world of basketball. That's it from my side, guys, and thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one.